Check out this young lady. She gently moved a big stone aside, and guess what? There was a beehive hidden underneath. Even more surprising was that the hive was filled with honey, way more than when she last cut down an extra tree to find honey in a tree hole. Every hole in this hive was almost overflowing with honey. The girl, wearing protective gear, wasn't fazed by the bees at all. She started taking out hive pieces from the cave, one by one. In total, she collected more than 10 pieces. Once she felt the bees were calm, she removed her hood and gloves, hung a plastic bag up high, and used her bare hands to gather the bees. Now, don't try this at home. Even this professional got stung, so she quickly put her hood and gloves back on and continued collecting honey. The bees were safely placed into the bag. After wrapping up, she happily put the honeycomb pieces on the ground into a cage lined with banana leaves. Of course, she didn't leave out the remaining honeycombs on the slate branches, since that's where the most honey was. When cut open, the honey looked crystal clear and super tempting. And no, this wild honeycomb is the real deal. There's still more treasure like this in the mountains. Just a few days ago, she found another hive under a stone covered with weeds. Sadly, this one had much less honey. Only about a third of the honeycomb was filled. But luckily, there were still many pieces to collect. After taking them all out, there were around 7 or 8 pieces, which is quite a haul. Plus, by adding a honeycomb to their bee village, the bees can keep producing more honey. The next day, she continued her work. There's a group of unique mountain runners who have a special fondness for hollow trees. Whenever they spot one, they whip out their homemade cross-shaped swords and start chopping like crazy. Why? Because these hollow trees aren't just any ordinary trees. They contain huge beehives. After chopping down the trees, she collects a large number of beehives. Equipped with thick rubber gloves and a homemade windshield, she's well protected from the bees' attacks and can collect the hives in an orderly manner. As she keeps gathering, it's clear that the honey in the back hives is much more abundant. However, despite the total count of around 20 beehives, big and small, only about 1/3 actually contain honey. Aside from collecting the honeycombs, she has her eyes on the swarming bees too. After all, they're valuable. All she needs to do is add a hive for them back home. But to keep these bees in line, she has to capture the big one, the queen bee. The queen ensures that the entire colony stays stable and thrives. Once she has gathered the bees and honeycombs, the hive is twice as full, making it a truly impressive haul. The bees that she brings back are safely placed into their new hive. And, thanks to the presence of the queen bee, they gradually come together and settle in. By the end, almost the entire bee colony has gathered inside the hive. It's safe to say that she's efforts have resulted in quite a big win.